we see something that says complex numbers, y'all ready? Y'all got your notes going? When we see something that says complex numbers, shh, we're talking about an I. We're talking about imaginary numbers. Okay? So here's some basic facts that we're just going to have to memorize and go with. If we have an I don't know why I wrote a T when I said I. If we have an I that is squared, that's the same as -1. Every time.
Is that just I or any variable
I.
squared?
Just I. I's not a variable. It stands for imaginary. I know, it's crazy. I squared is equal to -1. Okay, which means if I have the square root of -1, that would be the same as I.
What?
So before, when we had a negative underneath the radical, we got to write no real solution. We don't get to do that anymore, because now when we have a negative underneath there, we know it's going to have an I in the answer. Okay? Anytime there's a negative underneath the radical, now that means you're going to have an I in your answer.
Like that.
Wait, say it again.
Anytime there's a negative underneath the radical, your answer will have an I in it.
Can it be? Oh, that's probably why on the calculator it gave me an I.
Cool.
Yeah, Trevor, maybe.
I don't remember
Maybe,
when.
Trevor.
Alright, so let's look. Let's say I asked you for the square root of -25. Okay, here's how this is going to roll. I'm going to show you lots of steps, and as you get better at this, you're going to be able to keep them. Square root of -25, I know is the same as the square root of 25 times the square root of -1, right? Everybody agree on that? Okay. What's the square root of 25?
5.
Plus or minus 5. Good. What's the square root of -1? Ah, we wrote it right here, right?
Sorry.
That's okay. So our answer to the square root of -25 would be plus or minus 5i.
Does that have to be a
That's
lower
so
number?
weird.
Higher.
Yeah.
Why do they do that?
Why-
The
Yeah,
square
but
root
that's
of the
so
negative
weird.
25 is.
Does that have to be a lower sign?
It doesn't have to be, but on everything that's printed it will be. You'll be alright if you don't write it that way.
So
Yeah, you get it wrong. The whole thing.
Trevor?
for the -25, it's going to be the square root of -25 is positive -5.
So you'll still do, here's a way to simplify it in your brains. You'll still do the square root of the positive number just like normal, and then if there was a negative underneath there, you're just going to have an I on your answer.
This seems quite easy.
Wait, is this all? Is this all?
What, I mean, we're all right so far, right?
So far.
Okay, now let's make this like the one that we had on the bell ringer where we got to break it down a little bit. Okay, we got the square root of -72. Alright, if I start listing some perfect squares over here on the side, I know 1 squared is 1, 2 squared is 4, 3 squared is 9, 4 squared is 16, 5 squared is 25, 6 squared is 36, 7 squared is 49, 8 squared is 64, 9 squared is 81. So I didn't hit a 72 in there anywhere. I jumped over it, right? So it's not a perfect square. So I got to look and see if any of these, and it's got to be smaller to go into it. So if any of these from that dotted line up will go evenly into 72.
No.
Yes.
It's 9.
9 will, but there's a bigger one. We always want to take the biggest one, Connor. 36. Okay. You could use the 9 that Landon said, but there would still be more work later. You save yourself some work when you find the biggest one. So this is going to be the same as square root of 36 times the square root of 2, because 36 times 2 makes 72.
Coach Wright,
Yes.
on that volleyball to Perryville next Saturday,
Yes.
it's a tournament.
Yes, sir.
Is that senior or junior?
Senior.
Senior, so you know what time you'll leave?
No, we haven't got a bracket yet. It'll be in the morning, though.
Okay, so if I put down 7 o'clock, that'd be good.
Yeah, that'd cover it. Yeah.
And then how many you got?
17.
17?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, do you have a Saturday? We're going 7th grade's going to Fountain Lake.
Yeah, I hadn't got a buzz on
Okay.
that yet.
Okay.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you.
Then we've got still in this a -1. Okay. Everybody all right so far? I know we got distracted a little bit there. Everybody good?
Yep.
All right. So let's go down the line at what we can simplify. What's the square root of 36? 6. So I know I'm going to have plus or minus 6. What about the square root of 2? Just like on the bell ringer, I can't break, so it'll stay inside, right? Okay, I left a little bit of space there for what Landon said, because on this next part, what's the square root of -1? I. So that I is going to come out there after the 6.
That's the answer.
That's it. That's it.
So if we put, never mind.
Okay. What if we had, everybody got that one? What if we had -5, changing it up a little bit, times the square root of -9? -5 times the square root of -9. Okay? So there's a -5 out in front of that radical. So that means that anything that I take the square root of it comes out, I'll have to multiply it by what's already out there, right? Okay, so what about -9? Is 9 a perfect square? Yeah, it's 3. And then, but what about the negative? You got a negative, you just put a I on your answer, right? So this is going to be the same as -5 times 3i, which is
15.
-15i. Now, why did I not put a plus or minus sign that time?
Because we know it's a negative.
Right, they told me out in front they wanted the negative one. Good, Trevor.
Good job, Trevor.
These are like short.
Good job, Trevor.
It's easy, but it's just weird.
It is weird.
Do we have a worksheet on this?
We
Yeah.
might have an assignment tomorrow. Today we don't.
Oh, it's cool.
Sit by me, bro.
That is just nice.
That's not very nice, though. It's not nice.
Alright, going to the next page. Y'all pay attention. This one I've got, it's going to look a little different, but it's easy. I've got 2x minus 7i is equal to 10 plus yi. Yee.
Wait, can you subtract the yi from 7i?
No.
Darn.
That's you're thinking on the right road to what I'm going to do though.
So you're going to add 7y
you're gonna
to
move it
y?
over. Okay, whoa. Slow down. Alright. It's funny. What we're going to do on this, we've got a part of this equation that's real, because it doesn't have i's in it. And then we've got a part that's imaginary, because it has i's. So we're going to solve the real equation, we're going to make a real equation, and then we're going to solve the imaginary equation. So my real equation, that doesn't have an I, and that doesn't have an I, right? So I know 2x is equal to 10, which means x is 5. Hey, good. Now the imaginary part, stuff that I didn't underline yet. -7i is equal to yi. I'm trying to solve for y, and it's being multiplied by I. So even though this is crazy, it's the same rules as you learned in middle school. If I'm trying to solve for y and it's being multiplied by I, I would divide by I. Very good. And that's good news. Trevor's on his game. That's good news because those i's are going to cancel out, aren't they?
Yep.
Shoo.
Here you go.
So we have y is -7. Those are your answers.
Good job,
I like that.
Trevor, you
Yeah,
did it.
it's not hard. It's just
Trevor,
straight.
good job. Trevor, come sit by us.
I like it better than we were first doing. Like very first. Yeah.
I like having it
Bravo.
something equal to something.
Yeah, because you can always figure something out.
Yeah.
Bravo.
Sometimes.
You can't learn
Are y'all picking on Trevor?
Yeah, you can't learn
No.
anything around them. You gotta
Okay.
settle alone.
I just learned the whole thing around all
I'm
that.
learning pretty good.
You know. I think
Just
you
divide it
just-
out.
I think you just get distracted.
That would be good right now.
Oh, that sounds amazing. Some chocolate chip waffles with some cereal.
Alright, this says the quantity of 8 minus I plus the quantity of 5 plus 4i. This is probably, this is an easy lesson. It's just weird because you've got an i's in there now. But this is probably my favorite thing out of this lesson because this is like baby stuff here. That's the directions for this say add or subtract and write in standard form. So what we need to know, I'm going to make a note over here on the side in a different color for you, is what standard form of a complex number is. Standard form of a complex number will be a plus or minus bi. So all that means is the a, you see how I've written it there? The a doesn't have an I on it, does it? So the real part comes first. The real number will come first, and then you'll have either a plus or minus sign, and then you'll put your imaginary part. Okay, that's standard form. So if we've got to add those two things that I put in parentheses there and write it in standard forms, you're going to do just like we did earlier. You're going to add the real stuff. So this is, I'm saying add because this is an addition sign. So we're going to have 8 plus 5, right?
Yeah. Plus
Then-
4.
then-
No, never mind. There's all now.
Good, good. Then on my imaginary part, I got negative 1i plus 4i positive 3i. That's it.
That's too easy.
That was really really hard to ask. So I'm your phone broke.
Wait, dude, it doesn't break.
You want to bet? Let me see it.
Did I say give it to you?
No.
I said it doesn't break when I have it. Not when
You said it doesn't break through. Yeah. You said it doesn't break.
I was trying to figure out where you have 13.
I know.
Yeah.
He said he said.
And then you were like, oh, silly, 8 plus 5. All right, let's look at a subtraction. Shh. Let's look at a subtraction. Here I've got 7 minus 6i minus 3 minus 6i. Okay, so it's the
So you
same
do
concept, but you subtract. Go ahead, Chloe.
7 minus 3.
Okay, so Chloe's got my real. 7 minus 3 is 4.
And then negative 6i minus 6. Oh, negative. That's
That'd
me
be
minus
zero.
negative 6i.
Uh-huh. Good. Say that again, Stephen.
0.
Okay, negative 6 minus negative 6 is a 0i.
So it's just 4.
So that is the same as just 4.
Yeah.
Awesome sauce.
Can we get a worksheet down?
We got more to go still, but we are going to have the assignment over this morning.
I need the points.
All right, let's look at where they mix some stuff up now. Got what you need there? All right, I've got 13 minus 2 plus 7i plus 5i. Okay. Be careful with signs here. That subtraction sign is in front of that whole parentheses.
So you
Yeah,
subtract
distribute.
13 minus
So you could, very good, Landon and Trevor both said it correct. Trevor said he's going to distribute a negative. Landon said he knows it means you got to subtract it all. Both of those are correct. Okay, let's look at what that would look like. 13 minus 2 is 11, okay? But then minus 7i, right? Okay, then I'm going to bring down my plus 5i. Now what do we have?
Just
11 minus 2i.
Have a kid,
you
Trev.
just subtract.
Just combine those like terms. Negative 7i and a positive 5i is a negative 2i. Alright, so we're good on adding and subtracting with them because we got to multiply with them now. Guess that'd be a C. How about 4i, that's gross, times negative 6 plus I. Okay, the directions here say to multiply and write your answer in standard form. Alright, what do we, when we did these problems without an I involved, if there had just been a 4 stuck outside that parentheses, what would you do with it? Distribute it. So we're going to do the same thing, bless you, that's by multiplication like they said over here. So I'm going to have 4i, Landon, 4i times negative 6 gets us negative 24i. Now be careful here, what's 4i times I?
4i.
Good. 4i squared. Guys, be quiet. I times I is I squared. Oh, I times I is I squared. We made a note on my first page there about what I squared was the same as.
What's it? Negative 1.
Negative 1. Very good. So this is now negative 24i plus 4 times negative 1. Molly skipped a step ahead of me because she knows what 4 times negative 1 is. So that's negative 24I minus 4. I can't simplify anything else, can I? But it's not in standard form. I told you had to write it in standard form. Why is this not in standard form? What do I need to do to it? What we wrote down what standard form of a quadratic or of a complex number looked like. What came first?
The real number.
The real number.
Hey.
Okay. So I just need to flip flop these, don't I?
So negative 4 minus 24.
Negative 4 minus 24I. Winner, winner, chicken dinner.
Winner, winner.
Good right now.
What's up, G?
Oh, I was saying,
All right, check this out now. That was a. By the way, look back at this problem. This was a monomial times a binomial. Y'all remember those terms? One term times 2. Now we're going to do a binomial times a binomial. I got 9 minus 2I times negative 4 plus 7I. Okay, so we've talked a lot about a binomial times a binomial. You're multiplying them, obviously, and you can just do it by distributing to everything. My method is I use the first outer inner last FOIL, so it doesn't matter. I'm going to go ahead with my FOIL. You'll follow it here. 9 times negative 4. It's me negative 36. Outer, 9 times 7I. So positive 63I. Inner, negative 2I times negative 4. It's positive 8I. We all right?
Yeah.
Last, negative 2I times 7I. No negative 7 is negative 14. And Trevor's right. I times I is I squared. And that's important. We got to keep up with that I squared because we know it's the same as something in just a second. All right. Like in any normal FOIL problem, 95% of the time, you've got like terms to combine.
Wait,
Go ahead.
should we do 63I minus 8I, or should we change the 14? Wait, if negative 14
71.
comes negative 1, that would be a positive 14, right?
I'm going to do that last. You're ahead of me.
Okay.
Okay, good. What Landon's telling me over here is that those like terms, 63 plus 8 was what, Landon or Connor, whoever said that?
73. I'm at 71.
71I. And now let's talk about what Chloe was saying. We know I squared is the same as negative 1. So that's negative 14 times negative 1, which turns that to a positive 14. Now we got like terms again, Stephen. Negative 36 plus 14 is?
Negative
22.
Negative 22 plus 71I.
Coolness. Okay, that's so easy.
Yep, I like it.
It's not conflict that usually comes up in school.
Well, where's I this whole time?
We're 4 weeks in, and nothing easy has happened.
All right, now the whole point in looking at all this, because remember we're in the unit of solving quadratics. So now we got to put this to solving a quadratic. Okay, everybody, you got it, Trev?
Yeah.
All right, let's look here. I've got x squared plus 4 is equal to 0. The directions just say solve. All right, so that's a quadratic because it's squared. So,
Minus 4.
good. I don't have a b. So the easiest thing to do would be what Trevor said and just solve it algebraically. Subtract your 4 from both sides.
And square.
So x squared is negative 4. Undo my squared by square rooting. So x is the positive or negative square root of negative 4. What's the square root of negative 4? Okay, square root of 4 is 2. But we got a negative underneath there.
I.
2i, that's it.
Yeah.
Good, man. So that's all we had to do was put 9. We ain't been doing that this whole time.
Yeah. We've only had 1 or 2 that were negatives underneath there.
Just keep doing
I think negative square root is better than positive.
Okay.
Negatives usually.
Alright, let's look at another one. 2x squared minus 11 is equal to negative 47.
Plus or minus.
Alright, Trevor says we're going to add 11. Everybody alright there?
Yep, that's
So
alright.
let's, reason that's a good move, listen, keep all this in context. Reason that's a good move is because we don't have a b. So 2x squared will be negative 36. Is that right?
Yep.
Now what? We've got a, good, Jody. I've got a 2x squared. So I need to divide both sides by 2.
Good job.
So
Good
x
job.
squared would be negative 18. Now do the square root. So x will be the positive or negative square root of negative 18. Okay, perfect squares. 4 squared, 16. 5 squared is 25. I missed 18. 18 is not a perfect square. So like on the bell ringer, I need to find a perfect square that'll go into 18. 9 will, hot dog. So this is the same as plus or minus the square root of 9 times 2 times negative 1, isn't it? Okay? You don't have to, this is a step all y'all will skip before we get done with this, but I'm showing you everything I'm doing. Now, if it's a perfect square, the square root gets to come out and play wiffle ball. If it's not, it's got to stay in the house and do chores.
Perfect square.
Okay? So the square root of 9 is 3, so I'm going to have plus or minus 3. That gets to come out. 2 doesn't have a perfect square. It's going to have to stay in. Negative 1. That's a perfect square. What's the square root of negative 1? No.
Negative 1.
I.
Ah.
Good, guys. I. So an I gets to come out and play wiffle ball. So I got x is plus or minus 3i. And then in the house doing the chores is 2.
She bad.
Hey, buddy. Trevor. Trevor, why don't you stop it to us? I'm learning just fine.
This is easy.
The coordinates all
It's probably the easiest thing we've done all year.
But we just put it on.
Exactly.
We learned a lot in a month and a week.
The quote?
We got to see
No.
Civil
It's
War
long.
books.
I'm just gonna
Yeah, I bet you didn't.
Yeah, I'm all right.
Roasted.
And then I'm good. What's this word?
Who saw Civil War?
That was 2 days ago.
Who saw Civil War?
It's cooler than anything you did.
Okay, look at the way this is written. That says f of x is equal to 4x squared. Shall be quiet. F of x is equal to 4x squared plus 20. You got it, Landon?
Yep.
The directions on this say find the zeros. So what are you going to do on this? And it says f of x equals 4x squared plus 20. You're told to find the zeros.
We're gonna find
Wait,
the
what did
zeros.
But how? F of x is equal to 4x squared plus 20.
Found one.
There's 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Okay, but what are you gonna? That's what I'm trying to get you to see. The guys over there are saying move that 20, but there's something in the way of it over here. So I'm gonna good, Trevor. I'm gonna rewrite this as 4x squared plus 20 is equal to 0. Anytime they put an f of x up there, it's the same
So
as
then
just
subtract 20.
okay. Good. Subtract your 20.
So 4x squared equals negative 20.
Always going. Land be quiet.
Yeah, divide by 4. No, there's 4.
No, divide by 4 first. You're right. I was following you. X squared is negative 5.
Let's say plus 20.
X squared. And
Yes.
Okay.
you do square root of negative 5, is that right?
Yes. Now, what is the square root of negative 5?
There's not one.
Okay, 5, good. 5 doesn't get to come play wiffle ball. 5 has to stay in the house. But somebody does get to come play wiffle ball.
Who does?
Ah, very good, Dalton, because we got a negative underneath here. So we're going to bring an I out.
What?
Yep.
We need some 5 anyway. We got I.
So is that how we skip that step?
Mm-hmm.
So instead of just fx, you can just rewrite it.
If it's not a perfect square, all you gotta do is put.
Bring the I out.
What about like on the second one we brought a 3 out? Do we have to bring that 3 out?
Yes, if there's something that's a perfect square, you have to bring it out. Yes.
If it just can't be square rooted,
Right, then you can leave it.
square.
Can still have a perfect square in it. Yes. 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 All right, what I'm going to do here, I'm going to give you a problem of each type that we've covered today to work on your own and then check it with your huddle. Okay? Start it off here. Pretty simple. Number 1, square root of negative 36. Number 2, going to solve this one for x and y. 4x plus 2i equals 8 plus yi. Number 3, write your answer in standard form. 6 minus I plus 7 plus 3i. Number 4, need to multiply one. Ooh, I like this one. 4 minus 2i times 4 plus 2i. And then one more to solve.
No, not one more. I don't have any more space.
One more to solve. I've got g of x is equal to 7x squared plus 21. Alright. Do the best you can. Get them all done. Then see if your huddle got them right. Talk to your huddle about them. Let's go, let's go, let's go.
You got them right.
It's got a 9 in it.
I need to flip Quadratic.
No, it's just 6.
Stop it.
This number 2 is easy too. You just got to add 12x. What's 2? Why you got this? You just got to
It's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. And I was like,
I was just.
You were just what?
it's not okay.
Wait, is y like an x? Is 1? So it'd be 3i.
Oh.
I need to see my paper. I think you need to shut up.
Aren't you like that?
You just shut up.
Everybody got them?
Almost.
No, you're being rude.
I'm just trying to get paid.
Oh, I know.
Oh, crap.
Wait, number 2,
See,
third
Patrick.
one, the 4th one. 0. Is it the 4th one can't do that, huh? Or is it 8? What'd you get from the 4th one? Oh, God.
Connect all servers.
On number 4, you multiply?
Yes.
Okay.
It's 2 ended on number 2.
My God.
I'm pretty sure there's 0.
What?
I'll figure it out when the teacher tells me. It's 2, isn't it? Okay, I'm trying to do it.
Hey, what's the number 3? 32 plus
Way to go.
13.
Way to go.
You don't multiply, you add. What did I do wrong? 32 plus 18 on. You multiply. What do you mean I'm multiplying?
13.
Did you add your...
I'm just here, so.
Didn't you have a 4i squared in college?
If it's I squared, you change it to negative 1. So if it's 4I squared, that's the same as negative 4.
Yeah, I am. You add
So the
these.
answer would
I'm all the way to
be.
If you have 16 and negative 4, your answer would be 12.
That's what we did
Right.
right here on this one.
I don't,
So
If
plus.
you go back down, it was 16 plus 8i minus 8i.
So those are going.
And then it was minus 4i squared,
So if it's minus 4i squared, that's a
Wait,
negative
so is it
4
plus
times
a
negative
negative
1, so
7i?
it'll be plus 4. So it'll be 16
20.
plus 4 will be 20.
His number?
I did 6 plus 7, negative I
Alright.
plus 3i.
which one?
Number two.
What did you get?
Plus 3i.
No, Joe, you get your butt back
What'd you
over
get?
there.
What's the
No,
second
you
number?
get your
What's the
butt
second
back.
number? 3i?
Yeah.
2i? 2i.
Yeah.
Dang it, I was back to being stupid. I did 1 and 2, but it was awesome. Oh, okay.
His number, I don't know if I just.
What number?
Number, is it 4i?
Wait,
20.
0i is just 0i. Like,
So
it's
you just leave it out.
Okay.
20 is that.
Okay.
What you do is you do the distributing. Did you do that? 4
Oh,
times
yeah, I
4
didn't do that.
gives
I
you.
gotta do that. Well, did you do the same for number 3?
No, number 3 is plus. Number 3 is added.
Yeah.
Oh, I wrote it
Yeah,
down.
so mine did. It's,
So what's that? Number 2?
number 2 or 3? 3, it's 13 plus 2.
Oh, I did get that, but I did that. That's what
No, because you can't add a number in a very. You got that. How do you do number 2? Just 1 minute. 1
Okay,
minute.
you got another minute.
Let me find out number 2. What did I make on that?
40 out of 40.
I think I do them all.
Did you do number 2?
You got them all?
Number 2?
This one's not good. This one's not squared the same.
Oh, okay. On number 5, is x equals negative positive square root?
So it'll be x
So you do
squared
the 4
is equal
you just write them in
to.
different
No,
numbers.
it's equal to, yeah.
So you bring the real numbers
Equal to
up
negative
without the
3.
4 at
And then you square root it, so it'll
Yeah.
be.
equals 8.
you need to
So it'd be
bring the
negative
I.
positive I square root of 3. Yes.
Zombie dog.
Oh my, what are you
And then
getting?
you do the same thing. 2 y
Get on my cell phone.
divided by y divided by I.
Oh, you correct.
Yes, sir. Alright. For number 4, what you do is you distribute. You distribute that. And then after you distribute, you combine like terms.
Is
So
number
now you got
5
16
x
minus
equals plus
4i
or minus
squared, or
square
I
root of 3?
squared is a negative 1. So negative 4 times negative 1 gives you a positive 4. So 16 plus 4 gives you 20. I don't know if you got any of that. If you want to go.
Nah, I just need number 4.
Number 4. Trying to do it. You got them. You got them. Look.
Yeah.
Oh
You
my
distribute,
gosh.
and after you distribute, you combine
So
like
ready to
terms.
decode your analysis.
After you combine like
So
terms,
4
you're gonna
and
have
4?
16 and then minus 4i squared.
16 minus 4i squared.
Then you
Alright.
have negative
Because-
four. And then you turn the I squared into a negative 1.
So negative 4 times negative 1 gives you positive 4. Let me see it. No, that I squared
You
is
turn
gonna be
that
negative 1.
you turn it into negative 1.
So negative 4 times negative 1 is positive 4.
I knew it, I knew it.
See, this is the one thing that's actually like, I've understood.
Yeah, me too.
This is the first thing.
Did you put that in the grade book already?
Alright, let's see how we did. We ready?
Are we working them out or just?
On the first one, Landon, what'd you get for number 1?
Plus or minus.
6i, and what does your phone friend say we need to add there?
Plus.
Plus or minus. Very good. Hey, y'all pay attention. Everybody good on number 1? Square root of 36 is 6, plus or minus, and the square root of a negative is I. Alright, this was the one that's really weird to me, but it's really easy.
Yeah, that one's weird to me
Okay,
too.
so first thing you would have done was set your real numbers equal to each other. So if 4x was equal to 8, Connor, what was x? 2. Good job, sir. And then you set your imaginaries equal to each other. So if 2i is equal to yi, divide by I, and what is y? Stephen, say it again.
Y equals
2. Good job. Everybody good? So we got 2 on both of those there. Bless you, Chloe. All right. Number 3. Molly, what'd you get on number 3?
45 plus 11.
Oh. I got 13 plus 2i.
Molly, I think you accidentally multiplied.
That's what I did at first, but when I multiplied, I got 35 plus.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it's 13.
Hey, simmer down. We got a plus sign here, so we're just going to add our real numbers. So 6 and 7 will get us the 13. And then negative I and 3i gets us the positive 2i. Does that make sense? Everybody good on that? Alright. On number 4, y'all simmer down. On number 4, had a little bit of work to do on it. Ended up, and this is called something. That's the reason when I was writing these problems down, I said I really like this one. When you've got an imaginary number, a complex number, y'all listen. When you got a complex number and everything's the same except for the operation sign, that's what's called the conjugate. C-O-N something, conjugate. When all they change is the operation sign. And the point in a conjugate, and y'all saw it, is that all the i's canceled out. Okay, so you had on your first, you had a 16. Here on my outer, I'm not going to write it, but on my outer I had a positive 8i, and on my inner I had a negative 8i, so those canceled out, right? And then on my last, the positive times the negative is a negative, so I had negative 4i squared. I squared is negative 1. So negative 4 times negative 1.
It's positive 4.
Guys, positive 4,
plus
so
4 equals
20. Very
equals
good.
X.
Very good. Alright, that's a conjugate. And we'll deal with that in both radicals and i's. Okay, on the last
I
one.
got 16 minus 4i.
Oh,
Well, because you...
I times I makes I squared. So it was 16 minus 4, but it was I squared.
And I squared is negative 1.
Then you plug the negative 1 in for I
That's
squared.
so weird. Like, math rules are just so weird.
Alright, what do we got on the last one, Jody?
X equals plus or minus I square root of 3.
Good job. Anybody need to see that one?
Yes.
Alright, let's look at that. It wasn't just you, Mom. We had some over here, too. If we had 7x squared, guys, y'all gotta be quiet, plus 21 is equal to 0. First thing we're going to do is subtract that 21. So that would get us 7x squared is negative 21. Then we would divide by 7. So that gets us x squared is negative 3. Undo the square by square rooting. So x is a positive or negative. Square root of negative 3. 3 doesn't have a perfect square in it. It won't break down, but there is a negative underneath there. So the negative gets to come out and be an I. And the 3 stays in.
Oh.
Hey. Oh, now we got a keyboard. Alright. What we're going to look at tomorrow will be an assignment over this stuff. Okay? I won't. I'll leave it up there for you.
Will that assignment be for points again?
Yep.
Good. I need it.